And I would like to invite the applicant for 18 East Road Arch Contemporary Ceramics, and invite him to say hello to us. I would like to say that I very much appreciate his willingness to appear before the planning board and listen to some of our ideas about design. And I know that he acted in good faith and proceeded to build when he was issued a building permit, which is entirely reasonable. So thank you very much for joining us. And I would like to ask you to give a brief overview or concise summary of what your project involves in just a minute. But first, I'd like to ask whoever our legal counsel is tonight. I don't know if it's Travis or Mike, but whoever our legal counsel is tonight, if they could please give the planning board a sense or an idea of what our role is tonight with respect to this particular application. I know it is not as broad as it normally would be under Article 20 Development Plan Review. But if you could simply, Travis or Mike, give us some sense of what kind of questions we can ask and what kind of issues can we raise with respect to 18 East Road.
I just got a message from Mike. He's having a little trouble logging in. He is our solicitor.
Well, in that case, we can go right to Mr. Barmonde, and I'd like to have him kind of walk us through his project, but very briefly. I think we've all seen it, and we all pretty much know what he's up to. But what he would like to do, sir, could you go ahead and give us a brief overview?
Certainly. I'm Charlie Barmonde here. Nice to meet and hear you all. So specifically, what I'm doing is putting a second floor above the studio section of the building. There's if any of you have ever been in there, there's a retail section which is not being touched except for doors and windows, and the studio section, which I'm putting has been used also previously as the space that I use for office space, for storage, for packing and shipping, for all of that. And so what I'm trying to do is move all those functions of office and packing and shipping and storage onto the second floor, and photography, and keep all the dust in the studio section, essentially. That will enable me to just have a much more efficient studio space and be able to invite other artists to create there as well.
And you're not expanding the footprint at all, correct?
Correct. No change in the footprint.
Even on the east side of the building, with the kiln room, that I took a look at it this afternoon, and it looked like that had been expanded a bit. But you're saying it's on the same exact footprint.
It's on the same exact footprint. Yeah. I mean, that's the bathroom out there, and it's just gone up.
Yeah, it's hard to see if that was the case, but I just wanted to confirm that that's the case. So I would like to invite my colleagues on the planning board to ask any questions or make any comments they would like to make. I would like to point out to everybody, including anybody in the audience, that you're not only in the village commercial district, which is very small and includes the historic buildings in the immediate Four Corners area, but you're also in in a national register of historic places district, and that issue was addressed in our comprehensive community plan. So, having said that, though, I would invite any questions or comments from any of my colleagues.
I will always ask questions. Charlie, if I may call you Charlie Barmonde, I am a neighbor, kind of, down the road. I've lived here all my life, and I do have some concerns, but you have a love, are you the, I don't know if you call it a potter. Are you?
I take Potter. It's fine.
Is that what you, well, you have lovely work there.
Thank
I've
you.
been over a few times, one of the open houses, I guess it was, and it really is lovely. And so I do have a couple questions, but I'm going to have to wait until after the architect does his presentation.
Joe, want to share his screen?
Well,
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen?
well, somebody else might have some questions.
Okay.
Actually, I just wondered before we do that, since I see Mike has now joined us, could we have Mike address Stu's earlier question in terms of our purview and this particular application and its unique sort of timing and our review of it?
Yes, that would be good.
I'm
Give us
sorry.
a sense of, just to give us a sense, is this Travis or Mike?
Mike,
Just to give us a sense of the questions we can ask and the issues we can raise, so that we don't overstep our very limited jurisdiction. This is not a typical Article 20 development plan review. It's more specific, I believe.
Right,
If you could simply address
Sure.
that.
so I'll just give you a little bit of background. As you may or may not know, the individual was issued a building permit by their building official to begin his construction on the second story. After the building permit was issued, it was brought to the town's attention that he needed, before the permit should have issued, there should have been a design review, pretty much design review by the planning board because of its location in the Four Corners district. As a result of the discovery of that error, unfortunately, by the time we discovered it, the applicant had already taken off the roof of the one story and started construction. So in the spirit of compromise, the town indicated that we would allow him to pretty much button up the premises, and we didn't want to have an open roof basically while the inclement weather was still with us, and maybe damage the second, the first floor. So the applicant agreed to submit to the design review, even though the permit has already been issued. He technically doesn't have to do anything, but in the spirit of good faith, he's come back before us and submitted to this limited design review by the planning board. So what you're asked to do is really to take a look at the designs as submitted tonight, and make some findings whether you believe those designs and whatnot are consistent with the design review process or the neighboring structures. I will say I've talked to the planner about this, and I will ask her to chime in. The standards by which you need to judge this are really kind of not very distinct in our code. So normally you would have particularly design standards that the applicant would have to meet, but we kind of don't really have those design standards. So it's kind of a unique situation in that it can't be subjective, but it can't, it's supposed to be objective. But because of our lack of design standards for this area, it could tend to be on the subjective area. But I'm hoping that everyone will work in good faith. And since it's a second story on an existing building, I don't think the applicant, when I've seen the plans, he's not adding a brick structure on a wood structure or anything like that, or he's not putting a flat roof on a structure that used to be a pitched roof. So I hope that answers your question, Stu.
Yes, I think that gives us the guidance we need, and so perhaps now we could hear from the architect, because that's our primary focus tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Hi, Ed. I'm Joe Combs. I'm the architect for this project. Our operation is Studio Hearth. I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
So this was the original structure, and I think the vintage of this was the 80s or 90s. This actually wasn't a historic structure. It was built in the 80s or 90s by the previous owner. It is a timber frame, but it's not structurally supporting the timber isn't structurally supporting it. It's only for it's for show on the inside. It's actually a 2x4 framed building. When we got to it, it was in need of repair. It's actually 3 buildings. There's a center portion, a front gable, a middle gable, and a back smaller gable. The front portion was the studio, and then these 2 back gables were the retail space. So here's the existing drawings. This is actually the roadside facade that faces Gray's Ice Cream. And it's tucked back behind, I don't know the building that's in front of it, but it's a historic building. It's yellow and it's up on the hill. And this is tucked back behind. So Charlie wanted to add a second story to this front larger portion. And what we proposed was lifting it, and we kept the shingles on this portion and we did shiplap. This is actually a historic detail. So what we like to do is kind of mix historic and then do slightly contemporary fenestration just to break it up. And what this does is creates a waistband, this water table, and it actually breaks up the massing so it doesn't feel so tall. It actually makes the building feel a little bit more in scale with the surrounding area. And it splits it in half. And it also brings some visual interest to these long elevations here. And that's what we tried to do. This is all Alaskan yellow cedar. It'll age out to a natural gray. The windows they're Marvin Integrities, and they're a hunter green. So it will have green windows and all natural trim. And it won't be much different in material from this building here, except that it won't have painted trim as what we proposed.
Joseph, could you increase the magnification?
Of course.
Bring up the scale of that.
Of course.
Thank you.
And can you see it better now?
Yes.
All right, let me just. Is there a particular elevation that you want me to go to?
No, that one is fine. I'll let you continue, but I wanted to be able to see it because I have a few questions about that. But you can
Okay.
finish.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm still getting used to the zooms. I'm going to try this a different way so it doesn't cycle through like that. So that's the basics of it. We tried to keep it materially in keeping with the neighborhood, in keeping with what it was originally, as in essence, it was a barn building to those 2 front bigger structures, or that's what it was meant to appear as. Like I said, it wasn't a historic building that we knew of. I think the previous owner, it had been built in the 90s, 80s or 90s, and it was a kit timber frame. And we tried to keep it as subservient to the front historic painting buildings as possible, keep it a little more rustic, and kind of blend it into the background, into the woods, and break it up and break its massing up, because we did make it taller. We wanted to still break up this front facade and then these side facades, because you actually drive down here past this facade, which we wanted to break up. We did pull the corner entry here because before it was centered and it was a little bit awkward to get to this entry point. It wasn't clear because your main point of entry is a drive here that runs down to the parking in the back. You can see it here. There's a drive here that you come down. So this is really the most active facade of the building. So we pulled this entry point around this corner here, which is a bit more contemporary of a move, but for the space and the design, it worked on this facade in that corner to bring people into that main volume.
Charlie, Joe, is the main entrance not going to be on East Road anymore? It will be on the driveway?
The main entrance to the retail space is here.
Okay,
And then this is all studio space here.
okay.
And then office above. So the main space that interacts with the public is right here. And then this is a ramped entry in existing.
And that's how it's been the whole time that I've been in the building. I've
Yeah.
owned the building for 2 years now, and I've been in it for 4 years before that. And the main entrance has always been that.
Right.
This right here.
It started, I can give you a little history. It started out as a glass blower shop, and then it evolved to the Canton photography shop.
Mhm.
And it expanded. Whether or not it got permits, I don't know. But it very nice.
Yeah, so this, you can see that there's a, let me find that facade here.
It sits on property that used to have a stable on it years ago, and there was a man-made pond put in the back.
Is that pond man-made? I was curious about
Yes,
that.
that is
I was
man-made.
curious about that. Yeah, it's kind of a swamp, that area. Because I saw some trees in the middle. The trees look like they're in bad shape in the middle, and I was curious how those trees got into the middle of a pond like that. Is there any questions?
Yeah.
So, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Peter. I'm cutting you off. Go right ahead, Peter.
Well, I was just going to ask a couple of clarifying questions, and then I had a few questions. So the main sort of L is going to be the primary retail space. That is where the ceramics will be on display and the retail outlet and so on and so forth. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Then,
so it's this back portion.
And the first level of under the new addition is going to be the studio space.
This is all studio here.
And the kiln is where? I'm sorry.
There's 3 kilns here. These are electric kilns.
Yep.
And then there is a gas kiln here.
And that is vented through the roof?
Yep. These are all existing. All these kilns are existing.
Yeah. Okay. No, I thought, I was wondering if it was changing or not.
No, this is actually a pretty substantial piece of equipment. And it's pretty, Charlie, they needed a roller dolly to actually bring this in. So this lives where it lives.
So could you go back, Joseph, to the elevation, the front elevation?
Yep. The front?
The side, I'm sorry, the driveway side.
Driveway side. Let me just zoom out. So that would be this one.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to understand, I couldn't quite follow it from the plans. It looks like there's less fenestration altogether, a total percentage on this side. So are you removing, there's another door and windows. Are those being removed?
These are being removed here. There's a door here that's being removed. And
so that's a solid wall is what you're proposing.
Yeah, so this is removed and then this is removed.
And then the main other door, is that still a door under? Yes. No,
Here, this is a door,
not
but
the
it's
corner entrance in the center.
Yeah, so this is the door. This is a door here. It's on the front.
Right. That's not what I'm asking. I'm still asking on the driveway side.
Mhm.
Where there was under the 2 windows, right where your cursor is, just down below. What is that not a door any longer?
That's a garage door. That'll match this siding, and that's a roller door up to allow air to escape and ventilate the.
But again,
the space
no.
from the,
So there are no windows. You've reduced the total percentage of fenestration on this side by what percentage?
I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that ready. If I had known that was.
Well, I'm asking only because, and I understand, what you're attempting to do, but A, this is visible from, Main Road looking over the fence. And as you're walking down that drive, and it's also the shop front, and that idea of losing, fenestration where you could look in and see the retail items and the storefront.
If I can interject for a second, the thinking from my perspective as the gallery owner was, I really need the wall space. It's not a huge gallery. As a ceramicist, it takes a lot of equipment and a lot of space just to make the work. So that's kind of a necessary evil. I couldn't really increase the floor space at all because I wasn't going to attempt even to try to change to the total footprint of the building. So one way that I'm able to buy myself more shelf space and more place to hang things is to lose that door. And it also had, like, as much as it might seem counterintuitive, I didn't really want that much natural light penetrating the space. It's a lot, you can much more effectively light an art gallery when you have full control over the actual, the artificial lights inside the building. There's fewer shadows. There's a lot more that you're in control of in terms of presenting the work. So that was the thinking from my perspective.
Totally understand that. And on the other, I don't know which elevation it is, but if you're looking toward East Road, were there windows on that end, and are they removed as well?
On this side? The swamp side?
South side.
No,
The south side.
Yeah.
So the front?
The one that you can see from East Road, is that?
No, actually, I'm asking about the north side. I'm sorry.
There's no windows on the north side.
Yeah, there's no windows on the north side.
And what did it look like before?
Are there presently?
Wasn't there.
The north side isn't going to change.
This was the north side.
Okay.
They just raised it up. What is the intent of the second floor other than storage? Why that large window up there? I mean, that looks more contemporary.
It does. Yeah, it does. This is an office space up
I
here.
mean, personally, I don't think it goes with village commercial, but that's my aesthetic view.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as Rosemary. Though I really like the design, I am concerned about the aesthetic details that are really contemporary in this particular district. I do really like the gallery at 4, which is the building kind of in front and to the side of it, because it is contemporary, but it still keeps all of the, it keeps some of the detailing of the law office building next to it. And I'm wondering if we can make tweaks to do the same thing for this building. So the exterior color scheme is the same, the window light grids are the same, the roof shingle color is the same, the rake detail is the same. So you can still be contemporary, but fit the vibe of the buildings around it.
So this,
I completely agree with that, and I'd like to point out to Mr. Combs and Mr. Barmonde that most of the rehab projects in the National Register district have referred to the Secretary of the Interior's voluntary guidelines for rehabilitation projects, and have been very careful to maintain the historic character of the neighborhood, because that's one of the big attractions for people coming in, tourists and visitors coming in to walk around and to shop and to eat. That area is sort of the crown jewel of our historic resources in the town of Tiverton. So I would certainly like to emphasize what several of my colleagues have said already, that I would like to see the windows, the contemporary windows that you are showing now on the new building or on the enlarged building, I don't think fit in a National Register district, nor do the modern doors. I would like to see the windows, or something very similar to the windows that were in the building, that have been in the smaller building up until now, those windows should, or something similar, should be utilized. I think they are 12 panes on the upper level and 8 panes on the lower level, and they mimic several of the really historic homes in the neighborhood. The one that is right next door to, don't know what its exact address, but I was looking around and I saw similar windows in other buildings. So I think that's important. And the most recent rehab project that the Tiverton Planning Board has been looking at in that neighborhood is the Cheese Wheel. And the Cheese Wheel did refer to their architect, who was a Tivertonian and a former member of the Tiverton Planning Board, Melissa Hutchinson, did refer to the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic rehabilitation. And that project, I think, turned out very well. I like your project. I walked around it today. I think it's fine, but I urge you, in fact, I implore you to please jettison some of the more contemporary features, particularly the doors and windows, and give us a little more of the historic ambience that exists in the neighborhood right now and that has worked out so well. I'm sorry I'm monopolizing the conversation here, so I'm going to invite any of my other colleagues to make any further comments they'd like to make, either with respect to the architecture or anything else of a design nature.
I'm concerned about the height of the building. Maybe Joe, you can, I know we have a height. It seemed, when it was first going up, it seemed so high. And I don't know, maybe Mike knows or Jennifer, has a temporary building official looked at this? I mean, I don't feel comfortable with this type of plan architecturally as I do with regular site plans. So I'm looking for some guidance and to protect the town and also to preserve, the village commercial aspect.
Let me, before we continue, let me just state what the design standards are that we have written in our regulations. And I will answer Rosemary. The height restriction is 35
feet. I know.
Yes.
How are we going to know when?
Because that means it's about 3.5 stories, and this is not 3.5 stories. But
it's actually right here. It's marked as 31.6 high.
Yeah.
31. I saw 31.5 somewhere on the plan.
It's right here.
Yeah. But
okay. Well, let me this is from our regulations.
Yes, and you sent it to us in your
yes
memo.
Okay.
But you didn't take it.
Thank you. I know. I think people don't read it, but it's the design standards are required to have a traditional roof form, which I think we have, a gable hipped or gambrel as opposed to a mansard style. Fourth, the facade should blend with other buildings in the surrounding areas with compatible facade proportions, fenestrations, and general architectural type, or otherwise be compatible with the historic character of the town. Building sides without windows are discouraged, and if done, corrected with architectural details. 5, architectural elements which create variety, interest, and texture are encouraged. Elements which are out of proportion to the overall building, such as exaggerated dormers, should be avoided. There are 2 more. Buildings should have the same materials or those that are architecturally harmonious, used for all walls and other exterior building components. Traditional building materials such as shingles, clapboards, brick, stone should be used. And 7, additions or alterations to existing buildings should be complementary in scale to the original structure and architectural details, including materials, colors, textures shall be treated so as to be compatible with the original architectural style of the building, provided that such details preserve and enhance the character of the surrounding area. So those are our...
And to just add to Jennifer's comments, our comprehensive community plan states as one of the goals of the comprehensive plan to, and I quote, preserve the historic and architectural features and the special areas of the community that contribute to its unique characteristic, and that's on page 29. And Tiverton Four Corners certainly fits into that category, and certainly as a National Historic Register district fits as well. So I think we shouldn't totally ignore the standards set by the Secretary of the Interior, even though they're voluntary standards. They have served to really improve rehabilitation in that neighborhood over the past 20 years that I've been living in town.
Could I interject?
So does anybody else have any comments?
I just want to say one thing. I just want to say
Sure.
one thing so everyone really understands the process that we went through for this. We brought this in for plan review before we submitted it for a permit with Bill Moore's predecessor, that building inspector and zoning inspector. And we asked him if we had to, and I just want everyone to understand, like, it was never our intention to not not meet these guidelines or standards that you're saying. Like, we were never trying to skirt any of this. And I just want everyone to like really understand that we went through 2 meetings, one with Bill Moore's predecessor, and then the next one with Bill Moore. And then Bill Moore reviewed the prints for 6 months. And none of this stuff was brought up to us. And I just want everyone to understand, like, we weren't trying to skirt any of these neighborhood guidelines that you were just never presented to us.
No,
you know?
I
Do you know? And I'm not trying to like.
I really respect your good faith effort to play by the rules. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
and,
I don't want anyone to think we were trying to like pull a fast one at anyone. Like, really, we did our due diligence with this. We went through 2 building inspectors.
If there's any fault here, it's fault on the part of the town of Tiverton.
Okay.
Not you. So.
Yeah, I'm not trying to jazz up your neighborhood too much. You know, I didn't know I was gonna.
Right.
I didn't know we were gonna like run into this. Like, and we really did our due diligence to try to figure out what the temperature.
But didn't anybody tell you it was a National Historic Register district?
No one. No one told us anything. We had 2 meetings with building inspectors. No one told us about any of these districts,
including the overlay.
Well, thank you so much for your willingness to meet with us.
No, it's okay. I just want you guys not to feel like we're disrespecting, you know?
Yeah, no.
The overlay district, we didn't catch the code, the rehab code, it was section 20, correct?
Section 20 is the design review.
No, but the one that was
section 20, but also village commercial zoning.
It was 20 and it was buried in the back of the zoning. So it wasn't one that you reach on a normal zoning review when we start to go through zoning, because we start to read that zoning book and we find all the codes, but that actual code is isolated. It's not really connected to the village commercial in a way that it's natural to find it unless someone raises it for you like you guys did. It's not something that I would have found from my own code review because it's buried in the back.
But
you know?
I appreciate you saying that, because that's an issue that needs to be rectified clearly.
Yeah, because when we don't read the whole code book or the whole zoning book. We go like for our lot, village commercial, we start going through, and that section 20 it's orphaned. It's not connected. There's no way to reach it unless someone knows. Mm-hmm. So no one raised it for us. So we kind of plowed ahead and we never had any idea that we needed to go through this process. And
that was our fault, not yours.
Yeah, no, I'm just really apologetic. And I feel bad that, you guys, I feel like, I don't want you guys to think we were trying to pull a fast one on you ever. That wasn't our intention.
So Joe, maybe you or Mr. Barmonde could answer this quick question, mm-hmm. Which I don't think is an issue too much of an issue. Since you're adding square footage on the second floor, and that will be used as office space, does that trigger a requirement to add additional parking spaces? I believe at the present time you're allocated 5 parking spaces. Do you see a problem there?
We went through a review. I think we shared parking spaces with the greater property, so there's a substantial lot in the back. And Charlie can.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I've gone through this with Rosweir, and we have I don't have the documents with me, but we are creating an extra, I think, 2 parking spots.
And the planning board has the right or has the authority to waive that requirement, which we have done from time to time. So I don't think that will be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I was just curious.
Yeah, we did go through that process, to ensure that there is, I had to have the surveyors come back and, draw up the actual parking spots, and then we're probably going to actually build them just so that they, because we don't want to run into any other problems or cause any other issues for the town.
The only other.
Just for a second, because at this point, given that we've have already bought and paid for all the doors and windows, we will absolutely take all of this under advisement and see if we can do some tweaks that will help.
I'm wondering if you can exchange those at no additional cost to yourself for windows and doors.
Unfortunately, we can't. In fact, we ordered all the doors and windows just before a significant price hike was instituted on them. As you probably are aware of, the price of building materials is just going through the roof. So
could you please think apart from the doors and windows, could you please give some thought and certainly Joe Coombs give some thought to how you can make your building a little less contemporary and a little more fitting a little more into the historic ambience of the neighborhood and reflecting some of the historic architectural features that you'll find on neighboring buildings. That's all I'm asking at this point.
I understand.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. And the last issue I have, and of course my colleagues may have more issues that they'd like to bring up, is a big problem at Tiverton Four Corners has been the lack of sidewalks and the fact that in the summer, particularly on weekends in the summer, there are tons and tons of people and they want to walk around. They want to go to stay out of their car and walk from building to building, particularly the art galleries and such as your own and some of the places to eat. So we're trying to encourage, not only in Four Corners, but all over town, we're trying to encourage more sidewalks so pedestrians feel safe. It gets kind of crazy down there in the summer on a weekend because traffic is piling through to get to the beaches, and there are a lot of pedestrians walking from building to building. And is there any way you could think about, and I took a look at this afternoon, I took a look at the East Road side of your building, which is the front of the building. Is there any way you could put in a walkway, perhaps sort of a traditional historic brick walkway? It would be on your side of the stone wall. I wouldn't want you to interfere with the stone wall. There really isn't room on the street side of the stone wall, but I think that would be a really nice pedestrian amenity. And again, just to think about, just something that you might want to think about, because actually I think it might be good for your business. So having said that, I'm going to open it up one last time to my colleagues to make any comments or suggestions that they might have.
Yes, Mr. Barmonte, have you noticed since you've been there, you say for 2 years, have you noticed the
Been there
drain?
longer than that. I've been there for 6. I've owned it for 2.
Is it that long? Time passes quickly.
In a long time. I moved in right after Canton Photography.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been down here all my life, so and played in the Soul Seabury house in the front, and where you are back there now, there used to be a stable back there before the pond came in. But anyhow, no, have you noticed the water coming down off the state road, down East Road? There's an element down there that needs to be addressed. I mean, it comes down, and it's such an environmentally fragile area down there with the Borden Brook, which goes right into Nonquit Pond, just not too far from you. I just wondered if you had noticed it or contacted the state. The other thing that I have is you've added a bathroom on the 2nd floor. What is where is the septic? I mean,
the septic was just done. We actually share the septic with the Soul Seabury house.
Okay.
And that went under review with the DEM, and the septic is, I don't know, Joe, if you can sort of toggle over to the. Do you remember where it is, Joe? It's just to the south and of the Soul Seabury house in that field where.
Is it behind?
Oh no, that's where it used to be. I'm sorry, they moved it, and now it's over to the east of my parking lot, I believe.
It's over here somewhere?
No, it's
or over here.
Yeah, over there somewhere.
Because this is your septic cover, so you get 2 here, so the field is probably out here somewhere.
You got some wetlands flags down there.
If you walk back there, you can see it's one of those raised ones,
Okay.
with the gravel on top.
A Vantex system.
I guess.
Yeah, I think it's out over here.
It's on your property, or is it on the other property?
I guess it's, I'm terribly embarrassed that I don't have this completely nailed. I didn't think about it because it went under DEM review and, was deemed to be perfectly acceptable given the usage that the 2 properties use. It's quite an oversized septic.
So it's a shared system for the other buildings?
Just Soul Seabury and my building.
Oh, those 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And the common well is up above.
Yeah, the common well is over by the meeting house.
You use a shared, okay, so you have deed restrictions or something in your deed.
Are you pulling water out of the street though, Charlie?
No.
No? Okay. Because you had some sort of meter coming here.
Yeah, the water comes from the well, which is to the north.
Okay.
But that is where the meter is, but that's just because where it went into the building.
I'm just talking about the stormwater that comes down from East Road.
I haven't, Rosemary, to answer your question, I haven't noticed any significant water buildup on my property. That pond's right there. It takes quite a lot to fill it.
It gushes down East Road and it goes into the brook and it goes into the property, the dwelling up above. I mean, it's a mess. I go to church every week, and when it rains, it's really a mess. The other issue
that must be, it's coming out probably the other side of the property, because I haven't noticed anything on what I actually own.
It's draining over to the south, I think, more so than the north.
Mm-hmm.
But the brook is right there on the East Road too, not too far from there, to the east. But yeah.
I'll be right there, okay, Annie? Oh, sorry. I was my daughter. It's her bedtime. I may need to excuse myself, unless there's other pressing question.
Yes, I just wanted to ask if you would mind if we continued this discussion to our next regular monthly meeting in May. I'd like our chair, Susan Gill, and our other missing member, Adam Raposa, to have an opportunity to weigh in on this. And I hope, Mr. Barmonde, that we've given you some issues to think about and thoughts to think about, and then maybe when we get together in May, we can take a look at maybe some slight modifications. I don't think anybody wants to cause you economic hardship by causing a lot of changes, but I think a few tweaks here and there could make a lot of difference in the general appearance of the building. But does that seem reasonable to you?
Oh, certainly.
And would you mind coming back and visiting with us in May?
Well, I'll do my best. It depends on when it is in May, and I've got quite a few things happening. But Joe and I will certainly put our heads
Joe,
and
yeah,
try to,
or maybe Joe could represent you since he's the architect. But
yeah, we can. I think Charlie and I will have a
much.
Discussion about your comments, and we'll take those to
Excellent.
heart.
That's all I expect.
Okay.
And I have to personally thank you for giving us all this material. Unfortunately, I didn't get it until Friday, but you spent a lot of money on these plans, and they don't do their work too well, because it got you as 18 East Main Road in one plan, and then they've got Main Street on another plan. It's like unreal.
Mike wants to, has raised his hand. I don't think Stu can see that.
Who has?
Stu, it's Michael. It's so I just want to, if the applicant wants to voluntarily come back to us, that's fine. I just want to remind the board that he has a building permit for the plans that were submitted to the town. He's really here as a courtesy. I don't know how, to the extent that there are changes made, he would certainly have a valid claim against the town for the expenses incurred for those changes. So I just want to I'm not so sure what another.
I'm sorry, what expenses incurred for what changes, for what, the doors and windows?
Yeah, if he incurs cost because of those changes that were, I
just want to talk about that real quick. So you bought the doors and windows before it was approved?
Well, he didn't.
No, you buy the windows and doors early on because they're usually like a 12-week lead time. So windows and doors get purchased before the frame is done usually. So
yeah,
we got flagged
maybe I'm
when the
just
frame
different.
was
I normally would make sure I have approval first before I go and purchase anything.
We had approval. We had a building permit and approval.
Yeah, you had approval for those doors and windows that fit in the historical area.
No. So here's the issue. This is why we're here tonight. He was given a building permit for the plans that were submitted. The plans that were submitted showed everything that you're seeing tonight. The applicant, it's not his fault. The applicant has a right. If the town held up the building permit, then we could have this kind of negotiations that we're kind of having now. But the town issued a building permit for those plans. So I'm just advising, to the extent that we have any major change, like changing a window, I believe the applicant would have a right, a valid, whether he pursues it or not, to basically come back to the town and saying, I have a building permit. I relied upon a building permit issued by your building official. We acknowledge that this was an error. This is our error. So to the extent that there's going to be any costs associated with changes that this board may make, we're going to own those costs. And I just want to let you be aware of that fact.
Stu, Denise,
I just like to say that everything has to be voluntary, and we're certainly not going to run up costs. I guess I'm pleading with Charlie and Joe to think about doing that voluntarily, changing the doors and windows voluntarily. But if they choose not to do so because of the cost, I still appreciate their good faith in appearing before us and having this conversation. And I see Denise DeMonderis waving her hand, so I think she'd like to say something. She may need to be unmuted, however.
She's unmuted.
I am unmuted, Stu. Thank you. Charlie, thank you for cooperating and coming here today. I'm the Tiverton Town Council President. I think, Amanda, you need to understand that when they bought the windows, they had a full legal building permit. And yes, of course, it was our mistake, but it's not Charlie's mistake.
I didn't say it was anyone's mistake.
And
I didn't say that. All I'm saying is normally, I shouldn't say normally. Personally, maybe I'm overcautious. I wait until I have approval and
but he
I
did
make
have
sure.
approval.
Yeah,
He did have
yeah.
approval.
But
He
it's
didn't
in that district.
Yes, he did not understand
Yeah.
per the building inspector that he needed other than what he got.
No, the building inspector never flagged this.
Right,
Your
the
building
building
inspector is a
inspector did
zoning
not
official,
tell
and he
him.
didn't flag this for this
No.
review.
He
I
did
mean,
not,
it is what it is at this point, right? I mean,
Yeah, no,
But
I
I
just
don't-
want to be
I don't-
clear about the process.
yeah,
and
I
and
understand,
what-
Joseph, and I really, I mean, I agree with everyone else about pretty much
Joe,
all
can
the
I speak?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I interrupting you?
Yes,
My
you are,
apologies.
Amanda.
My
Thank you.
apologies.
I think it's unnecessary to have him come back again. I think that he got a legal building permit. He bought all the necessary stuff he needed. It was not his fault. The town council admits that a mistake was made, but it's not Mr. Barone's fault. And at this point, I think we need to just move forward. Look at his building and say, Charlie, build your building, because I think we gave him the opportunity to conform to what we needed, and we did not tell him what he needed. He did not know that this was a historical district. He was given a legal building permit. He was nice enough to stop building at some point.
What?
And we told him that he needed to make sure it was watertight, and he stopped at that point. Mr. Barone did not need to come here tonight. And I'm really sorry that this all happened. We are going to correct this, but I don't think that we need to stop his progress right now.
I will just say that in good faith, regardless, Joe and I will have a conversation and see what we can do to mitigate against the concerns that the planning board has expressed this evening.
Yeah.
It was never my intent or Joe's intent to go around any regulations of the planning board whatsoever. We, as Joe said, it took 6 months to get this project approved. We were, 4 months behind schedule. I've lost I'm probably going to lose my whole summer season because I had to start so late.
And I want the planning board to realize that. He took 6 months. He went through the proper process. He got a building permit, and it's not his fault that this has happened. And
we will absolutely take it under advisement, and we'll try to do the best we can to, satisfy the concerns that we've heard this evening. We have no desire to, be an outlier or to go crosswise against what the planning board.
Yeah, we want to fit in.
We are in the process, so we'll do the best we can without.
I think Charlie, I totally agree with what you're saying. I really appreciate your cooperation, and I certainly agree with what Denise has said. We have caused a problem for you, and so we're not going to cause further problems for you if we can help it. How do my colleagues feel, however, about not bringing Mr. Barmonde back in May, but letting the matter rest as is? Since everything is entirely voluntary, I think Mr. Barmonde is probably, and Joe Coombs has probably gotten a pretty good sense of the fact that I think we're all pretty much agreed that we'd like to see a little more historic and a little less contemporary. If that can be done in a way that's satisfactory, we would really, really appreciate it. But in any case, we appreciate their cooperation tonight. Does anybody feel strongly that they need to come back in May? I'm guessing that Susan Gill would feel that way, but I also understand what Denise de Medeiros, our town council president, just said about ending this and moving on.
Work has been going on every day.
In all fairness, work has been going on. I saw workers doing.
And if they're nice enough to they want to talk about it, why can't they come back? I hope they would.
So can we poll the members of the planning board? I would withdraw my request that they come back and support the idea that they've heard from us, they know what we're interested in, and they will, I'm absolutely certain, make a good faith effort to compromise a little bit and to maybe do what they can do within their budget. So, Rosemary, I'm putting you down as someone who would like to see this come back in May. I'm putting myself down as somebody who would prefer to wrap it up tonight. So let me call upon my colleagues who are here, and I will just go down the list. Peter,
if I can interrupt for just one moment. I'm sorry. I'm going to need to excuse myself. My daughter is up past her bedtime, and she's
absolutely, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Charlie.
No, thanks for having us, and Joe and I will, like I said, we'll have a conversation or several, and see what.
She's a lovely empress.
Yes, this is the lovely empress, exactly. Anyhow, good night, you all. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Charlie.
So, Peter, would you like them to come back or not? Peter Barmonde.
I honestly, I think I'm just going to abstain. I mean, the feeling is that we're not in a position. I have a bigger problem with our process, which needs to be addressed with the town and the building office.
Our process is broken.
Yeah, that it's not for this process. So I'm going to abstain and wish them the best and hope that they will hear what we've had to offer.
We did hear, and I appreciate everyone's comments.
And I'm your neighbor, and and I love Charlie's work. So I'm just going to abstain on this.
So Christine Shea.
I guess Jennifer had originally requested that we do a design committee, like a sub meeting, and I think that would be something that I'd be interested in, so that we didn't have to wait a month for them to have this conversation all over again. I think that there are really minor tweaks that we could do working directly with Joe, and that way, I know the windows and doors have been ordered and they're extremely long lead times right now. So I get it. And I think it'd make more sense to wrap it up before May.
Can you guys see my screen really quick?
We do have an agenda item later in our meeting about the possible appointment of an ad hoc technical review committee to look at this project. That, I think, is a non-starter. Because this project really doesn't lend itself to a technical review committee overview. But we could use that agenda item just to talk very briefly about maybe putting you, because you have the expertise, Christine, and the planner, and maybe one or two other people into a little subcommittee that could begin to talk to Joe right away. And just, to answer any questions he might have and to make any suggestions you might have, to be able to make some changes that would make us all happy and not add any kind of significant cost to the project.
Yeah, so, I would agree with that. And then
Adam, thank you, Christine, for your comment. I'm really happy to have your expertise on the planning board. We really miss our former architect, so you supplement that. Adam is not with us tonight. Amanda, how do you feel?
So I just kind of wanted to continue what I was saying for just a minute, because I know I normally don't really talk too much. I kind of let the seniors talk a lot, and I absorb and I listen and everything. So just bear with me. So as I was saying before, Joseph, I think you did a wonderful job with your presentation, and I applaud the apologizing you didn't understand, so on and so forth. So back to kind of what I wanted to talk about earlier with the windows and doors. Is that something that you might be able to possibly work in. I know the gentleman had said he wanted to purchase them before, I guess, costs were going up and stuff like that. But is there any way, like, possibly we can make it? I know it is in the historic district, and I know that's kind of like the gem of Tiverton, and a lot of people like to keep it a certain look, and obviously in the documents it says such too. Is that something that you think you're going to be able to do?
I'll speak with him. I have some ideas for the front facade that's on East Road. I think that's one of the more contemporary facades, the gable end there with the picture window, and I'm going to present some options to him.
That's a great thought, Joe. That is a great thought because that's the most visible. And so if you could make some changes on that facade, maybe you could forget the other facades, and it wouldn't, but thank you. And Amanda, very good comments. So one more person. Janice Gomes.
My thoughts on it are to let things go as they are, but that whatever design changes are made, maybe you could share them with us.
I would share them. I would pass them along to you before and get your input. That is a great suggestion. I think that it has to be an open channel and communication. And that's what we would do. So I would present changes to Charlie and see, and we'll discuss it. And then I would reach out to you guys and present those changes to you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I'm sorry, Amanda, I'm cutting you off.
No, it's okay. I know I normally don't talk a lot, but by no means am I and I love your cat.
Do you want it? I'll bring it to your house. You can have her.
Funny story. I'm opening up a store up in North Tiverton. It's another time, but I did want to say, I hope you don't think we're trying to be too harsh, or I'm trying to be too harsh on the. I just know how important that area is for the residents of the town of Tiverton. I know they expect it to look a certain way and have that certain feel.
No, I totally agree. I had no clue that it was no one flagged any. We went through all the meetings. We talked with the zoning official. No one flagged any of that stuff. It was never my intention to shake the tree like that. But on normal occasions, I will straddle that line between historic and contemporary and kind of play with both elements. It's just a style that we do, that's the style of our firm. I am versed in historic. I studied shingle style architecture under Nancy Leslie on the other side of the pond over there in Narragansett and South Kingstown. I'm a native Rhode Islander. I grew up there. I've done a lot of historic in that area. So it's not something that I'm not versed in. It's just something that we didn't know that we were in that historic district, and it never got flagged for this review. So we never went through the proper process because that's how we start always. We always start with a town and speaking with you guys, and speaking with the boards. And we always go through all the jurisdictions and that we have to and speak with you guys, so.
Right.
It was never my intention.
You're going to do a great job. And I'm sure it's going to look great. And I can't wait to go and visit when it's done. How's that?
Okay.
So thank you so much, Joe. And I think we can leave this agenda item with the idea that, if I did my math correctly, more votes for not requiring arch contemporary ceramics to come back before the planning board in May. But if Charlie and Joe are willing, we may put a group together. We'll at least discuss possibly putting a little group together in lieu of an ad hoc technical review committee, but a little group just among planning board members who can share some ideas with Joe and Charlie and then get their feedback as well. And Joe just said that when they do come up with a modified design, they will share that with the planning board members. I think we've made a lot of progress. And again, I apologize for the town of Tiverton's failure to brief you appropriately. To me, it's astounding, but we'll work on fixing that. And so thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Okay.
So, with that, I will close this agenda item, and I will go on to agenda item number 2.
Stu, can I say one thing about?
Yes.
So one thing to hopefully put your mind more at ease about the future of the process. Before, when there were building permits, they had just gone in with the building official. So now I am being notified when any building permits come in, and any commercial building permits, and making sure that if they're in the correct district, that they come before the planning board. And if they're not supposed to, I write that in and say the planning board doesn't have any say over here, or the planning board
and
does.
I see Denise waving, and Denise would like to say something, which I think we'll all be interested in hearing. Go ahead, Denise.
To add what Jennifer is saying, we also hope that the zoning official from this forward on will also be notified of any new plans that are coming through, because the building inspector has a really tough job. And that's why the town council put a part-time zoning official there for his use. So I would hope that whatever comes through that Jennifer looks at, but also the zoning official can help the building inspector with all of this also, because the building inspector is overwhelmed at times, and you all can see that. But that's
Absolutely.
why we hired the zoning official, and that's why Jennifer is our planner. So hopefully all three will cooperate and make this work. The town council realizes that this is a problem, and we are addressing it, and hopefully we'll move forward, and something like this will never happen again. And
great.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Denise, and I'm really happy you guys are on top of it,
Okay.
and I'm sure you'll make a change.
Thank you.
So, end of this agenda item, and I'd like to go on to agenda item number 2, which is Douglas DeSimone, Douglas Enterprises Limited.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to step out.
Sure. Bye-bye. Talk to you later. So this is this agenda item has to do with the release of surety at Harbor Ridge, and this is the rural residential development off Hayden Avenue in off Main Road, in the neighborhood of the villages at Mount Hope Bay and the Smoke House gas station. And this, I believe, is 16 units. And the developer, Doug DeSimone, would like to get the remaining $15,000 of his surety returned to him. So this is our next agenda item. And I'd like to ask if there is somebody here in our audience representing Mr. DeSimone, or perhaps the president of the Homeowners Association at Harbor Ridge. Is anybody here representing Harbor Ridge?
I do not see anybody. I did see someone earlier this meeting, but unless anyone will raise their hands or let us know in the attendees, I do not.
Okay, I'll give.
Do we know who Galaxy S10e is?
That's Stu.
That is Stu. Okay.
So the issue here, Mr. Chairman, the issue here.
The Galaxy is Bob Barboza.
Oh, Bob.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
So the issue here is whether we're going to, the only reason that we're holding the surety is the Homeowners Association formation. It was formed. It is on file. However, Mr. DeSimone is still, I didn't get a chance to check today, but I don't know if Jen has, but Mr. DeSimone is still listed as the director or one of the directors of the Homeowners Association. But it is a validly formed Homeowners Association. They just need to transfer the names into the homeowners. So
what we were given by way of background material on this item is a very brief letter from Douglas DeSimone, the developer, to Paul Marois, the president of the Homeowners Association, in which Mr. DeSimone announces that he and his wife are resigning from the board and officers of the Homeowners Association. And then on the flip side of that piece of paper, Douglas DeSimone has provided us with a certificate of good standing, but not of the Homeowners Association, a certificate that relates to his own business, Douglas Enterprises Limited, which no longer has any stake in Harbor Ridge, since all of the lots have now been apparently sold. So nor has Jennifer provided us with any guidance in her memo. So I'm going to ask Jennifer now if she has any suggestions, because it seems to me, and I know Susan Gill feels very strongly about this, that we need to know that there is a homeowners association that is functioning, that has a board of directors, that has a fee structure for raising money, and that is certified with the Rhode Island Secretary of State. If we know that, then we can release Mr. DeSimone's $15,000 back to him, and know that if there are problems with the stormwater runoff and related infrastructure in that subdivision, that we can go after the homeowners association to pay the costs of doing the necessary repairs. So that's what we need. We don't apparently have it yet. Jennifer, do you think we have it?
No.
Are we there?
Yes, I am here. I had correspondence with Douglas and told him that he had submitted these documents, but that the Secretary of State still shows that his wife, and another person with the same last name are the officers for the Homeowners Association. And I said, what we'd like to see is that the Secretary of State shows other officers that are homeowners. And he said to me in the email that he still wanted to come tonight and talk about it, and he believes that he should get the money, even though I told him that this is what the planning board is looking for and you are not providing it. But the fact that he's not here today, I don't know what to say to that. You know, he made it clear that he wanted me to here tonight, and that he wanted his money back. And, you know.
So I'm going to suggest that we leave it. We leave this agenda item. Perhaps put it on our May meeting if Mr. DeSimone would like it to be back in May. That might give him and the Homeowners Association a little more time to let the dust settle and sort out the paperwork. But it's important, Jennifer, that Doug DeSimone understands exactly what the planning board needs in order to release that $15,000 surety. So if you could give him a call sometime and tell him what happened tonight and tell him exactly what we need, then I'm hoping to give him back his money. As you know, I was the one who made the motion back, I think, January 12th to release the surety, and Susan wasn't happy about that. So I always like to support the chair. So in any case, I think that's the way we should leave it, and I think that's fair for all parties. So having said that, I'd like to go on to agenda. Unless anybody else has any comments, I'm sorry, I'm cutting off my colleagues here.
I think Jennifer.
Does anybody have any?
I do.
Does anybody have any?
Stu, I think
yes,
Jennifer,
Rosemary.
I think Jennifer's got enough on her plate, and I think it's up to Doug DeSimone to call her. I mean, I think she's explained everything to him enough, and so did we at the last meeting, but he walked out. So, I mean, I would let DeSimone, he didn't have the courtesy to call and say he couldn't come tonight or something, and after insisting with her, I think it's up to him. But that's
well,
just,
we'll leave it up to Jennifer. I wasn't instructing her. I was simply thinking of the town of Tiverton being very responsive to the developers we work with, and I know that Mr. DeSimone feels like he's not being treated fairly. So I think we should make every effort to be very generous, as generous as we can with developers. So having said that, and if no one else has any comments on this agenda item, we will move on to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number.
Stu, Mike.
Yeah, Peter.
Do we need to vote to continue this? Do we need to take any
No.
action?
No, because this is a simple release of surety, and it's up to Mr. DeSimone to make another request to be put on the agenda to ask for his surety. And there's no time clock involved either. So
Okay.
he comes back or he doesn't. If he doesn't, we get the $15,000, and then we try to figure out how to account for it. So.
Okay. I just
so
wanted
that brings us to.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. So that brings us to agenda item number 3, and this has to do with a garage, a larger garage replacing a smaller garage at 47 Puncateest Neck Road, which is Plat 706, Lot 114, and the owner is Peter Jeffries and Pamela Thompson. Jennifer has provided us some notes on this. We also have in our packet a plan of the garage. We have a letter from Tom Ramatowski, the chair of the Tiverton Conservation Commission, because this is in the primary watershed of Nonquit Pond. So an environmental review statement is required by the applicant, and we always ask Conservation Commission to review that and give us some advice on it. Dr. Ramatowski has given us a letter saying that conservation is fine with this project. We also have a letter from Steer Engineering. And by the way, do we have anybody tonight from Steer Engineering? Do we have Steve Baker or?
Hi, Stu. It's Kelly Ravenel from Steer Engineering.
Oh, Kelly. Yes, of course, Kelly. You're actually going to pretty much be the new Joe,
yep.
Right?
Correct.
Good. Well, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you for having me.
We have the letter, and it makes some excellent points, and the point that struck me that I think is the most pertinent is there's also a carport, and the letter from Steer. Did you write that, Kelly? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, I did with the
letter
comment
from
Steer
says that it would be really helpful to know if there is what the actual net increase in impervious cover would be, because the new garage will be about 300 square feet larger than the old garage. So we're expanding impervious coverage with the new garage, but are we reducing some impervious coverage by tearing down the carport? And so Steer wanted to get those numbers. I don't believe those numbers have come in. In fact, the Steer letter is fairly recent, so maybe maybe Mount Hope Engineering representing the applicant hasn't had a chance to respond to that yet. But I think that's the big issue that we always ask with respect to to anything that's going on in the two reservoir watersheds. The amount of the net increase in impervious cover, which causes stormwater drainage to run into the ponds and contribute to the nitrogen and phosphorus pollution in Nonquit Pond. And that pond, by the way, has been cited by the federal government and by RIDEM as an impaired pond, and something called a total maximum daily loading program, TMDL, is being developed for Nonquit Pond. And our comprehensive community plan tells us that whatever we do, we need to be consistent with the TMDL for both Nonquit Pond and Stafford Pond. So having said that, I would call on Jennifer to tell us where she would like to take this agenda item tonight. We can't resolve it tonight. In fact, I would very much like to have Susan Gill present when, before we do resolve this. We don't have the information all of the information that Steer has requested. Actually, it's Robin Dyer that actually wrote the letter for Steer. So, Jennifer, what would you like to accomplish on this agenda item tonight?
Well, I think that Todd should probably go through the plan since he did it and explain what they're doing, and then if they understand all that Steer engineering has explained that needs to be changed or added. That sound good?
That sounds great. Todd, nice to see you again. Please give us a brief, and I underscore brief, synopsis of this project. It's pretty clear and straightforward.
Can you pull up the plan on the screen, somebody?
I can pull it up if that's all right, unless you'd like to, Todd.
I'm on a laptop that I don't have that handy, so if you want to pull it up, that's fine. But
sure.
As the chairman said, it's pretty simple. The proponents are asking to replace an older garage with a new garage that's slightly larger. I'm not sure what the answer is on the old carport that's there, if Mr. Jeffries wants to take that down or not. But the increase is only a few hundred square feet, 0.3% in lot coverage. We're about 500 feet from Nonquit Pond on a large lot. So there's quite a bit of grassy area between us and any roadways or before any runoff water is going to get anywhere. Conforms with the setbacks and zoning, and I know we have not seen this Steer letter. I believe Mr. Jeffries asked if we could see that letter, but I'm not aware of what's in it, so I'm not able to answer any questions on that. But unless
the letter is actually dated March 30th, Todd. So somebody should have shared that with you by now, knowing that this agenda item was coming up tonight.
I haven't seen it, and I believe Mr. Jeffries asked for the letter, but we never, as far as I know, he didn't get it. If he got it, I didn't get it. But
I sent it.
I mean, if the questions are simple, I can try to answer them off the top of my head, I guess. But
I have just one question for you, Todd, but I'm gonna call upon my colleagues to ask questions or make comments before I go ahead.
I have a few things that I found on the plan and in the narrative environmental review
Excellent.
statement.
Excellent, Rosemary. Go.
Like to hear them.
And Todd will be taking notes. And
I have a comment on Steer's letter. I think it was just a cut and paste problem. Kelly, on the letter, it says a planning board application sheet signed by Patricia Doyle and it wasn't signed by Patricia Doyle. It was Peter Van Jeffries on the first bullet item on the cover.
Okay, yeah, I can check our references. That would have been pulled from what we have saved on the server. So
that was another application.
Okay.
Patty Doyle. So that's a typo there. And it is 47 Neck Road on it. Puncateest, that also, Todd, is Puncateest Neck Road. From Four Corners down to the end to Sepauwett is all Neck Road. All the mailing addresses, for years and years, it's been that way. The deeds say Neck Road. Somebody went and changed the sign at the corner and put it on the plan. So that is Neck Road. And then,
Change the town GIS system as well then, because that
well, it's
says,
wrong.
okay.
That's what happens. And then on your plan, the environmental review thing, this is a joint application for Peter Jeffries and Pamela J. Thompson. In the title block, it doesn't have Pamela in either block. And then it also, the road name, again, in the title block is Neck Road, should be changed, to change it to Neck Road, as well as on the plan. And number 17 Neck Road on the plan for BEHM properties. And the locus is get rid of the Puncateest. Going over to the environmental review statement. The cover again is missing. No, I'm sorry. That one shows 47 Neck Road.
What?
That's the, oh.
I'm not sure. What doesn't show 47 Neck Road?
No, that one says 47 Neck Road on page 1. You're all right there.
And on the plan, it says 47 Puncateest Neck Road.
Puncateest should not be there. Delete Puncateest.
Oh, okay.
On any place it says Puncateest because it's Neck. I'm familiar with this because my uncle used to own this property.
Of course.
And you can see owned by, I believe it's Peter Jeffries and Pamela in the title block on both places. Owned by and prepared for. I have too many papers. Okay. Is that right, Mr. Jeffries? I see you're on there. And Stu brought up the points that Steer made that should be included. Those are my comments.
Bill,
Hello,
wanna go through?
Mr. Jeffries, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Jeffries.
So I would like to make a couple of points. With regard to the carport, that is attached to the garage and that is coming down. So I believe, and Todd, I think you can confirm this, that the square footage included both the combined structures.
I believe it did, yes.
So that's, it will not remain. In fact, it's in the process of falling down as we speak. I'm a little disappointed to hear these technical questions about the name of the road when the planning board has had this application for months. And I hope we can continue with this application and get this settled tonight with the understanding that we'll take care of these minor technical things. You know, this process has been protracted and I'm disappointed to hear that there are these issues coming up at this late date.
I have given, I have.
And if I could just add, I did not get the steer letter until 5 o'clock this evening. I asked for it on last Friday. I did not, and I had to ask for it again today. So I want to make that, put that on the record. And Todd did not get it.
Steer actually doesn't raise a lot of serious issues. Their issues are also of a very technical nature that are going to be very, very easy for Todd to address. And Mr. Jeffries, I do apologize for the fact that you have been delayed. This is the first time you've appeared before the planning board. And when you come before the planning board, you unfortunately get us, and we do reserve the right to ask questions and to make comments. So the process is slow, and I do sympathize with that.
So if I could just point out, my application went in the first week of January and was not reviewed for weeks. So if you would understand my frustration and please work toward.
I do, and I sympathize with you, and that's maybe something that we need to. The planning board needs to give some consideration to that. I don't think the planning board itself is responsible for the delay. We deal with what is on the agenda. And the planning board does not make up the agenda. The chair of the planning board has some input, but and I'm not the chair. I'm just sitting in tonight for the chair, Susan Gill. But we're going to have you come back one more time, Mr. Jeffries. But I think that if we get all of our technical issues resolved, and I think they're going to be very easy for Todd to resolve, then you can come back with a clean set of plans that we will be able to approve in a single meeting. But I'm afraid we're going to have to drag you back in May.
Mr. Chair, what are the other questions of steers? Are they something that if they're that simple, can they be answered tonight? And the town's tax cards. The town tax card lists this as Puncateest Neck Road as well. It seems like a pretty minor. I mean, I obviously don't care about deleting 6 letters off the words, but it seems tough to hold them over for another month on something like that. That's misrepresented on the town's documents all over the place as well.
Yeah, but
the steer letter has a number of technical issues that they would like, but this is minor stuff that Todd that will not take much of Todd's time to correct. But we need to take a look at a clean set of plans in order to give you the final approval. We can't do that tonight. There are way too many. I count about 12 items that Steer is mentioning, all of a very minor and technical nature, but all of them are good improvements to the plan, and we want the plan as clean as we can possibly get it. So, Jennifer, would you like to make a comment on that?
And say something.
Sure. Peter knows and Todd knows that I reviewed these site plans, and I had a series of comments, which they did change on their plan. And I talked with the chair, Sue Gill, about it. And so even though he did submit a plan, that was sent to the Conservation Commission and recommended by them, after that point, it was going to be heard before the planning board, and I had him do additional changes, which including the whole parcel, which wasn't included in the original plan. So I just want to make that clear that it has been a while. Maybe I should have sent the steer letter earlier, but I did not get the steer letter until Wednesday, Thursday, and you know that our staff has been short. So I apologize for that, but I really didn't think that it would be able to be fixed and submitted to the planning board in time for this meeting anyway, because the changes to the map need to be changed, then printed out and given to the planning board. So that is one of the reasons that I did not get that right away to you.
That's fine. I would like to invite my colleagues on the planning board now to ask any questions or make any comments they have. I have one or two very brief items, but I would like my colleagues to go first.
I would just like to say, I brought these, I did not get the steer letter, nor did I get the plan until Friday. Fortunately,
Me too.
I was sick a couple days, and I'm sorry, Mr. Jeffries, but we just got it too.
So Rosemary's comments were very helpful. Does anybody else on the planning board have any comments or suggestions? Well, so while you're thinking about that, the only thing I have, I was thinking of, Mr. Jeffries, is very often in the primary Nonquit Pond primary watershed area, we like to try to come out to zero net increase in impervious cover in order to minimize stormwater runoff, which is the big culprit for nitrogen and phosphorus pollutants in Nonquit Pond. And is there anything, is there any way you could compensate for the roughly 300 square feet of impervious coverage that you're adding in this project? And I completely agree with Todd Chapin that, you know, that you're well back from the pond and that any impervious cover will probably not have much impact on the pond. But is there anything that can be done to compensate or to offset that increase in impervious cover? And I'm thinking about any area on your gravel driveway that could be converted to, Ryndham has a new standard, and they call it crushed washed stone. Kelly can address that if she'd like, but is there any way that you can remove the gravel and give us roughly 300 square feet of pervious material, which is this crushed washed stone? Ryndham now considers gravel to be impervious because if you drive over it enough, it turns into hardpan. So it's like asphalt. But I'm just throwing that out, and I don't want to add to your costs, but it would be nice if we always try to get to zero net increase in impervious cover. So I'm not being unusual here. I always ask the same questions, whether we're talking about the primary watershed for Nonquit or Stafford Pond. So that's my only comment, and perhaps you can talk to Todd about that, or maybe you can look into what it would cost if it doesn't cost too much. I think that would be very nice. That's my only comment.
I'd be happy to look into that, and I would be curious as to, given the grading, how that would all work. So I don't know if you have any suggestions.
If you have an area that is paved with gravel or asphalt, for that matter, that contributes where stormwater runoff ends up in Nonquit Pond, that would be the place to do it, because that would be a little bit of a benefit for the pond, and we always ask applicants who are building larger buildings or additions to their house or a new garage or whatever to give us something back to compensate for what they're taking away in terms of in terms of pervious. So, but that's just something to think about. It's not a deal breaker. I'm still going to support this project, but I think it's a good project and environmentally sound. But and Tom Ramatowski and the Conservation Commission said nothing about it. But if you and Todd could just give that some thought, that would make me a happy camper.
Okay, we're happy to talk with Todd about that.
Thank you. So if no one else has any questions or comments for Todd or Mr. Jeffries, then let's leave this agenda item with the understanding that if Todd is able to take all of these technical issues that were raised by Steer and also by Rosemary tonight, and modify his plans, and then brings those clean plans back. And here, I think, when those plans come back, they should come to Jennifer, and Jennifer should look them over to make sure that they're going to be absolutely clean and pristine, addressing all of the issues that have come up. Then, when you go back on the agenda in May, this process should be able to wrap up very quickly. It's not a big deal.
Well,
does that sound reasonable to you? And Todd, does that sound reasonable?
That's fine with
yes.
me.
Thank you.
Motion to continue.
So we have a motion to continue this to our May regular monthly meeting in May. And do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to give it to Peter. Amanda, I think he beat you by just a quarter of a second. So
that's okay. Me and Peter are on the same wavelength.
We have Rosemary making a motion, Peter seconding that motion to continue, hearing no further discussion. I guess I have to read the list of people. Rosemary.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Adam. No, Adam's not here. Adam is here. No, Adam is here. Amanda.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Janice.
Yes.
And Stu, yes. Okay, unanimous. So again, apologies for the delays, and we're hoping that we can resolve this in May, and you'll have your new garage soon. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So I think that brings us to agenda item number 4, which is the Robert and Colleen Barboza subdivision, which has been going on forever and ever. But I'm hoping that we can wrap that one up tonight. We now are looking at a final plan. We did not. We have the preliminary plan decision in our packet. We don't have the checklist or the certificate of completeness for the final plan application. But I think the only thing we really need to focus on tonight with respect to Barboza, and by the way, is Robert Barboza here? I think I heard him in the audience earlier.
He is.
Great. And I believe, Mr. Barboza, do you have a new engineer? Is SciTech new? Yeah, I thought it was. It didn't. So
I have no.
So what we need to focus on, I think, tonight are the conditions that we set on the preliminary plan, and I believe that there were 7 conditions. 6 of those conditions have to do with the plan itself, and relatively minor modifications to the plan. The 7th of the conditions has to do with legal counsel reviewing and approving the access easement. And if we had the certificate of completeness, we would have had that entirely listed. I tried to find where these plan improvements were put, but I'm wondering, Jennifer, if you can just walk us through that.
I can walk you through.
If you can show us that all of those conditions have in fact been met, then I think we will be ready to make findings which can be exactly identical to the findings we made for the preliminary plan, and then approve the final plan.
Can you put the plan up too?
Yes, I put the plan up. Let me answer some of these questions. So,
okay. So Jennifer, let me interrupt. Here's what I would like you to do.
Okay.
I would like you to take each one of these conditions in order, 1 through 7, and show us, at least 1 through 6, show us where they have been addressed on the new plan.
Okay. Let us see. Great.
Stu? While Jennifer's getting ready, Stu, may I say something that you said? Mr. Barboza apparently had SciTech for his preliminary plan, and then he went to Northeast Engineers, another engineer. I believe you said it in the reverse.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is the one. Okay. So I have gone through the checklist. The applicant didn't submit a checklist, but I went through our checklist and I made sure that everything was there. The reason I did not give a certificate of completeness until today was that I did not have an electronic copy. So once I got electronic copy, I provided a certificate of completeness today. The 7th thing that was missing was a formal letter from the solicitor saying that the easements were okay. I told Mike and Travis that we needed a formal letter, and they did submit it at the end of the day today. So we do have that. So let me go through now that we have the plan up for the different changes from the preliminary plan. So the first one was to add a benchmark notation, and I'm not as good as Joe Cardillo with this, but this is the benchmark. Let's see. Let's see if I can write on it. Can you see where my cursor is in the
Yes, we can see your.
Yes. Okay, so here's the benchmark is right here that Joe Cardillo had mentioned. The solicitor to review the formal easements. I can show you that document after we look at this plan. So note 1, there is the mention of the permit. We were going to add wetlands permit 17-0240. That's right there. Note 3 is this permit, insignificant alteration permit 20-0152. Number 4, we have that permit. There we go. Which is on-site wastewater treatment, 1733-0920. He does say wash crushed stone, and I talked to Bob a little bit about this, and they weren't able to fit crush wash stone, so they kind of put proposed crushed stone driveway and then put use 3 4 inches to 1 1/2 wash stone. So I thought that was doable. Add note to the dimensional variance granted by the zoning board. Let's see if we have that. Right here, the plan is subject to dimensional variance from the zoning board, and it gives the recorded page. The lines that address the DEM number 17A and 17B were this mention about the rhododendrons, proposed shrubs consisting of 27 rhododendrons, maximum shrubs, 3 feet in height after planting, and planted 6 feet on center. That is what was written on 17A and 17B. Include base level contoured elevation for the plan. Kelly, can you help me with that last one? Where's
I'm looking for it right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Usually it's at the bottom of the page, but I'm not seeing it when I look quickly. So see, for example, in general notes all the way to the right, it says number 2 says vertical datum is assumed. Usually It'll just tell you all the way to the right. It's above the title block. Yeah, number 2 there says vertical datum is assumed. I'm just looking, usually it will say like NAVD 83. So I'm just trying to find.
Oh, yeah, I did. I feel like I did see that. And NAD 88, is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's it. Okay. So everything was done.
It's also on
so
number.
Kelly, are you?
Oh, go ahead.
Kelly, are you good with all of this?
Yeah, as long as the, like you guys were discussing, the stipulations or conditions were met. They seem to be satisfactory.
Good. So I think now I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any further comments but really, back January, at our January 12 meeting, that was the time to make any further comments. But if you do have any further comments, we might be able to accommodate that and still approve final plan tonight, because as you know, it's our practice, if there's a small technicality, that we go ahead and approve the final plan with the understanding that the AO will make sure that that technicality has been addressed before the plan is recorded. But so am I hearing any further comments? I'm just going to ask Rosemary, because Rosemary is the one who catches little gremlins. Did you catch any more little gremlins?
Yes, I did. And I apologized on one of them because I didn't catch it. But I'm uncomfortable because I haven't done a very good job, again, because I got it so late. But this is a new engineer, and they have title block. This gets recorded in the land evidence book. And it's got, here again, it should be compressed, but it says 267 King Street, client owner. It's issued for a permit, no. It says final minor subdivision plan. It should say 2-lot minor subdivision final plan review or something like that. And the one I apologized for, because I was looking at the top of the plan, Mr. Barboza abuts properties on Deer Run Road, but Deer Run Road doesn't show on the locus. And that's carried through because I looked at the preliminary plan. But again, I apologize because I got it so late. And Jennifer's got enough on her plate.
So how would you like to handle this? I would really like to go ahead and approve the final plan. I discussed this with Susan Gill, and she agrees that we're ready to approve the final plan. Would you like to restate those concerns so that Jennifer understands that Jennifer and the applicant and Mr. Barboza is with us tonight, understand that the minor modifications you'd like to make on the final plan, so that they can do that, SciTech can do that, and then Jennifer can check that over to make sure it's been done before the plan is actually recorded. So could you do that?
SciTech's title block was more consistent. I mean, it brought it down, and we have typos. Again, like I say, it has to be recorded in the land evidence books. So that's why my concern, if it were planned, you can do the findings and then have Jennifer and Susan check the title block for recording.
Well, we want to make sure that we get everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get the,
yes.
Fix the locus.
Okay.
Fix the locus with Deer Run Road because it is shown, and then put the client owner is King Road instead of King Street. Eliminate for permit. And
yeah, that actually came up at our last meeting, Rosemary, and they
it was in a different place at the last meeting. Oh, yeah, but then he changed engineers. So,
yeah, right.
So I'm a little uncomfortable, but go for it if you want with the findings, and
okay,
check it before record.
So that will be our process. If everybody is on board with that. So the next step, I think, in our process is to do findings of fact. So our usual 5 required findings. But I looked at the findings of fact that were made on January 12, 2021 for the preliminary plan, and nothing has changed that would affect those findings of fact. So I believe we can make the same findings of fact for the final plan. We do this quite often, actually. And in the past, we have simply not actually reread the findings of fact, but simply voted to approve the same findings that we made on January 12, 2021. But I'm going to ask Mr. Marcello if he would feel more comfortable if we would just reread all of those findings of fact, or if we can simply approve in a motion simply referring to the findings that we made on January 12.
I think you can incorporate by reference and just refer back to them, because there weren't many changes as you indicated.
So then I would entertain a motion to approve the findings of fact that were made on January 12, 2021 with respect to Mr. Barbosa's preliminary plan.
And adopt them for the purpose of giving him final plan approval.
And exactly, and they will be repeated verbatim in the minutes and repeated verbatim in the final plan written decision. So that way, anybody 10 years from now that's reviewing our minutes or looking at our decisions will be able to read the exact verbatim language rather than have to go back to January 12th. So that's the motion I would like somebody to make.
So moved.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have a second? Thank you, Amanda. Do we have further discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will read through our list. Okay. Rosemary.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Janice.
Yes.
Stu. Yes. And Adam is still not with us, I believe.
Right.
Okay. So now the final step in our process is, now that we have made findings of fact in support of this final plan, we go on to a motion to approve the final plan. And again, a final plan cannot be conditional. It is simply what it is. But our motion should also include the understanding that our chair, Susan Gill, and our administrative officer, Jennifer, will make sure that the gremlins that Rosemary has cleaned up, that those gremlins are addressed in the plan that comes into the planning department before Susan signs those plans and before they get recorded. So that would be the motion I'm entertaining now.
So moved.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll second.
Amanda. Needed a little prompt there. Getting tired, I think. So, okay, we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing no discussion, I think we're ready to vote. Rosemary.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Christine.
Yes. My daughter
Amanda.
says yes too.
Is that
Amanda says yes, and Janice.
Yes.
Thank you, Janice. And Stu, yes. Okay, so it's unanimous. And Mr. Barbosa, we've kept you quite a long time, and we've had all kinds of issues creep up that have delayed this process, but congratulations, and we wish you the best in the future.
Thank you very much. Can I just question, what are the changes I need to do? I know the Deer Run Road has to be shown on the plan and.
The locus.
What's
Just in the locus.
The
Oh,
locus.
is that the vicinity map?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Underneath the New England,
Okay.
Northeastern Engineering,
So it's just those two issues?
and down here where it says street, that needs to be.
And say 2-lot minor subdivision.
Two lot minus subdivision. Okay.
Final plan review.
All right. And I did change from site tech to Northeast engineer.
We noticed.
That was the, yeah.
Unfortunately. they
That
didn't
always
have a road.
causes that always causes problems. So, but good luck to you. We wish you the best.
I wanted to do a blowhorn just to congratulate everybody for putting up with this.
Good. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 5. Number 5, Tiverton Planning Board. So agenda item 5A is approval of minutes. And I believe that we all have minutes from our March 16. March 16, I'm sorry, March 16, 2021 draft minutes. Susan Gill has asked me to continue this to our next meeting because she has some corrections that she would like to address. And she also thought that since we didn't get this until Friday, that some other people may have not gotten around to reviewing March 16. So we'll do that at our next meeting, or at least plan to do that at our next meeting if that's agreeable with everybody. So that brings us to agenda item B, which is appointment of ad hoc technical. Yes? Hello?
Hi, Stu.
Somebody...
Rick Rogers, DPW. Hi, Rick Rogers, DPW. Stu, you're all set with me. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Rick, and thanks so much for sitting in. If I knew you were still with us, and I can't see everybody because I'm working on a computer that's very limited. My other computer wasn't working properly. Wouldn't accept the reference to tonight's meeting. So if I had seen you in the audience, I would have already told you that you could go home and get some rest. But thank you for being with us. We really appreciate the input you give us.
No problem. Thank you all. Have a good night, everybody.
You too, Rick.
Good night.
So this agenda item B, appointment of ad hoc technical review committee, has to do with the 18 East Road Arch Contemporary Ceramics project that we did earlier tonight. They're not coming back in May. They certainly don't need a technical review committee because our TRCs usually deal with issues that have nothing to do with their project. But it is an opportunity to revisit the loose thread that is still hanging concerning whether or not we should put a little group together. I would be delighted if Christine would kind of spearhead that and take another good hard look at their design to see if you can help them think of a way that they would voluntarily approve to make their project a little less contemporary, sore thumb, and a little more consistent with the historic ambience of their neighborhood, which they didn't even realize was a national register district. Christine, would you be willing to give some thought to that? And would anybody else like to join? I think Jennifer, as the planner, should be part of that process. I don't know if we probably need to stick to members of the planning board. Otherwise, we're creating some kind of a new committee that will have to go to the Pope for his blessing, the way we are doing things now. So hopefully, but a small group. Is there anybody? Peter, you're good at this stuff. You know 3 times more about it than I do. Could you and Christine and Jennifer get together and think of some ways to get our new friend Mr. Coombs to come up with some ideas. He was clearly shocked tonight. He was that should not have happened. And he specializes in contemporary architecture, but he is willing to work with us. So if we can get our 2 architect members or people who are knowledgeable about architecture, and that would be Christine and Peter, together to work with Jennifer, I think we can make more progress here.
Sure, I'm happy to help. Just keep me in the loop, Jennifer, about and where. And
we'll make a meeting I'll give the applicants a little time to think about what they've heard at this meeting, and then I'll.
So this is a little task group of the planning board, which I'm appointing tonight in my role as acting chair. And I'm sure Susan Gill will support this as well. In fact, Susan might want to participate as well. So I think that's a good resolution of this very difficult matter. So that brings us to agenda item 5C, which is review of past sureties, recommendations to town council, and possible vote. I don't think that there's anything here tonight, is there? There's
nothing new.
There's nothing to take action on. Agenda item 5D is something that disappoints me greatly, and that's the FY 2021-2022 fees and escrow discussion and possible vote. Susan Gill did a lot of work putting some thoughts together. Those thoughts that would have set us up for this agenda item were never distributed to the planning board. Fees are something that we really need to address because state law allows us to charge fees to cover our cost. We can't use fees as a profit center, but we can charge fees up to the point where we're covering our costs. And at the present time, we are not covering our costs. And Susan was very anxious to get this on the agenda tonight because in May, town council typically takes up fees, and then we would have had something to give to town council. So we're a day late and $1 short, and I'm very disappointed because this is a matter that we should be on top of. This is a money matter, and of course we're very short budget-wise in the town of Tiverton. So hopefully Susan will insist that this actually go on the agenda in May with all of the backup material sent out to the board well in advance of our meeting. So that brings us to agenda item 5E. And I'm also very, very disappointed about this. I have myself put in tens of hours of work on updating our subdivision regulations to bring them into consistency with the comprehensive community plan of 2018. Susan has done a lot more than me. We don't get paid for this. We're volunteers. We've worked hard on this. We've been making very slow progress. We were supposed to wrap this up tonight. It turns out that the material that we were sent was not advertised, so we cannot take action on the materials that were sent out to the board. Those materials were not advertised for the public hearing. As you know, when we make changes to our subdivision regulations, we have to do it in the venue of a public hearing. So that didn't happen. What was advertised was never sent to us. I'm just very, very frustrated, and frankly, Susan is very frustrated. That's why she's not here tonight. But hopefully, and now we have this new wrinkle, which is we were not consulted as a planning board, but our solicitor, our planning board solicitor, went to town council last night with a very reasonable proposal that the town council come up with an ordinance that specifically authorizes us, consistent with state regulations, to update our subdivision regulations when we need to. I am disappointed that the solicitor did not raise that issue with the planning board before he went to town council. I have absolutely no problem with the substance of what he is recommending, although I'm a little surprised that no solicitor for the planning board in the past 20 years has raised that issue. Not a single one. Not Peter Squires, not Peter Ruggiero, none of our past planning board solicitors. But still, I'm a belt and suspender kind of a guy, and I don't think it would hurt to have specific authorization from town council. So I'm all in favor of the idea. I am disappointed in the fact that this matter was taken directly to town council over our head. It should have been. We should have had the courtesy of at least being able to listen to why and hear some reasons why it may be necessary or it may be advantageous to take that action. I don't believe, and now I'm being told in a memo from Jennifer that she doesn't even think we have the authority to amend our own subdivision regulations until such time as town council adopt this ordinance that they discussed last night, giving us that authority. I'm
not sure about that.
I think that if we take that position, then we might as well throw our subdivision regulations in the toilet, because we have been amending our subdivision regulations for the past 20 years without such specific authorization from town council. So I would like to just express my personal view on that. And I would further like to say that what we have been doing is basically, with these subdivision regulations, basically three things. Simply taking items directly out of the comprehensive community plan that apply not to zoning but to our subdivision regulations. That shouldn't be controversial, because the comp plan has already been approved, not just at the town level but at the state level. Secondly, making our making our subdivision regulations consistent with new state regulations, such as the regulations that deal with timetables and deadlines. So You know, if it's now 180 days and it used to be 150 days, we're making, that's a technical change. That's not a big deal. And then the third thing that we've been doing, Susan and I, in these regulations, and Rosemary has also helped, is we have been clarifying areas that have been sort of gray, things that we've been insisting on, materials and deadlines that we've been insisting on with applicants, but we really didn't have it specified in our subdivision regulations. So we really needed to do that to be fair to the applicants. I don't know why there's been resistance to this project. I sense that there has been resistance to my good faith efforts and Susan's good faith efforts to make our subdivision regulations fair to everybody, not overly burdensome on applicants, as clear as we can make them, and consistent with not only state policies, but also our own comprehensive community plan. So I hope that while we can do nothing tonight, because things were advertised at great cost to the town of Tiverton that were never shared with the planning board, hopefully we can continue this item to our May meeting and actually start to make some progress on what I think is not controversial. It's not complex. It's very straightforward. And I don't know why there is so much resistance to this. We don't do this every 5 minutes. I see Denise, and Denise reminds me that there was a discussion at the town council meeting last night. We actually don't update our subdivision regulations very often. I think maybe once every 3-4 years. We're going through a big project right now because we have a new comprehensive community plan, and state law encourages us to change not only our zoning but our subdivision regulations to bring them into consistency with the comp plan. That's why we're doing a lot right now. But typically the subdivision regulations sit on the back burner and nothing much happens from year to year. So it's not like we're doing it every 5 minutes. But so having said that, I think we can wrap up our meeting with the understanding that that we will be addressing the issue of specific authorization by town council, which again I think is a good idea. It certainly can't hurt. But in the meantime, I hope that we can also proceed, because this is going to take several months. Town council is going to have to advertise this process over a period of weeks and over a period of several meetings. So hopefully we will have some input into this legislation, and hopefully or at least our chair will have some input into this ordinance that town council is considering, and hopefully we can make some fairly, well, frankly, non-controversial changes to our subdivision regulations in the meantime. So, having said that, I would like to invite somebody to make a motion to adjourn.
Stu,
unless anybody has any further comments. Does anybody have any further comments?
I do have one that I wanted to ask about, I think.
Yes, Peter.
And this relates in some ways to what you've just been talking about. It's more about administrative and procedural elements, and one of which came up quite clearly tonight in the arch ceramics piece. and I see sort of two issues, one of which it sounds like is an administrative oversight, which seems to be being addressed, as Jennifer has now said that she's making sure that, you know, the planning board is notified, as is zoning, when these applications come in. And so that you're notified and that you have the ability to review a plan. But the other thing that was raised that the architect noted tonight on that project was how not transparent this is in the code, in the zoning code, and that you have to go hunting to find these things. And it relates, I think, conversations that we've had, Stu, personally, that, you know, we really don't have the teeth in our zoning code that we need that is in alignment with our comprehensive community plan, especially around the overlay districts. And that is long overdue for renewal and update as well. And it's a real problem because, you know, we're getting more and more development pressure and things coming in, and there's lack of clarity and developers thinking that they can do one thing when that's really not the intention of the plan. And so there's got to be clearer, better, stronger alignment between code and the comprehensive plan. And I'm wondering, you know, we have all this administrative work to do and our agendas are all so full. When is this going to get done? And what is the proper forum to do this? And we need to be advancing it and not pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. Because otherwise we get more Seasons gas station, you know, applications on our main road, and it's just a continuous problem. So I want to just make sure that, and whether this is a council initiative or, you know, how does this work get done? How does it get fit into the timeline? There's a number of moving parts to it, I understand, but these continue to be issues, and we're seeing what happens when they fall through the cracks. And we happen to have, thankfully, an applicant tonight who is very reasonable and very responsible. It could have been much worse for the town and for us. And I really want to avoid this. And I think it can be, we've got a really good comprehensive community plan. We need to align the regulatory bodies and agencies with it. And it has to be done sooner than later. And that's all I wanted to say.
So Peter, you're preaching to the choir here. But, you know, things don't get done unless you have a plan to make them happen. And that plan has to have resources and it has to have a schedule. And I would like to see the town planner and the chair of the planning board sit down and come up with a long-term plan to begin to bring zoning into conformity with the comprehensive community plan. That's going to cost some money. It's going to take a lot of time. But you know what? If we don't have a plan for the plan, it's not going to happen. You know, I know that from my professional career. And we don't have a plan right now. I do want to say that I was happy that Jennifer raised the issue of the future land use map and inconsistencies, and proposed to town council last night that 15 parcels that are already protected be rezoned from residential to open space. That's a first step. It's a very minor procedural step that has no practical impact in the real world because all of those properties are protected already. None of those properties are at risk of subdivision development or commercial or industrial development. But let's call that the first step in our plan, and let's actually come up with a plan so that we say, in 6 months' time, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then in the following 6 months, we're going to do A, B, C, and et cetera. No plan, nothing will get done. So Peter, kicking the can down the road, if we don't have a plan that actually has a schedule, a timetable, and figures out resources, and again, this goes back to fees. You know, we've just blown the opportunity to adjust our fees to get some money so that we can have outside consultants come in on that on the zoning project. So enough of that. I'm going to shut up. As you can see, I'm a zealot on that issue. But if it's anything like the problems that we've had with the subdivision regulations, it's just going to be a nightmare. So does anybody else have any last minute comments or questions? I don't see it, so I guess we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 9:06.
Thank you, Rosemary, and we don't need a second for that.
Privileged motion.
So do I have to, I guess we have to vote on this, don't we?
No.
So Rosemary.
No, it's a privileged motion.
We don't have to vote. It's a privileged motion, so it has occurred already. We stand adjourned.